What is up, my friends? How are we? You are very welcome along to Friday night's late night agenda, which is actually quite late tonight. You're all very welcome in. I hope you're having a nice weekend thus far. Of course, the Reds not in action until Monday night, so we've got a free weekend to, well, enjoy the football and wait. Bit of a reversal from last weekend, where of course we kicked off with the Friday night game. Currently in tonight's Friday night game, Chelsea are absolutely wiping the floor with West Ham. How much longer will that go on for Potter? I'm not really sure. We do have confirmation out tonight that Lewis Kumas has completed his loan move to Birmingham for the season. Mark's just sent that one on to me, so we do have confirmation on that. We're going to talk tonight about Isak, of course. We're going to speak about Mark Gay and that situation. We're going to talk about Ibrahim Konate and his future and lots more over the course of the next 90 minutes. Right, what's this one? Right, so now we have something that's just dropped into my lap this second from Graham Bailey of TBR Football. And Graham writes that TBR Football can now confirm that Steve Parish is actively attempting to sell Mark Gay to Liverpool. Parish has made it clear he does not want to lose him for nothing next summer. So it does look like this one could have some legs, folks. What I've been trying to find out all day today, though, has been what's going on with the situation with Ibrahim Konate and his future. And at the moment, I don't have a definitive answer on that I feel comfortable in giving to you guys. I did get an answer, but I need to get a second source on it just to make sure we're good to go before we bring it to you guys. Right, let's get stuck in. Tonight, James Smith, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC. James GUEHI, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC as well. Kaz Marks, how are we? All the way over in Australia. Lovely to see you again, Kaz. I hope you're well. Good morning, Craig and Liverpool community. Hope all is well. Looking forward to the stream this morning. I woke up in time. Have a fabulous day. Thank you so much, Kaz. And yeah, same to yourself. I hope you have a good weekend ahead. So much for us to get through tonight, as it looks like Liverpool are going to make some moves in the latter part of this transfer window, which of course we really need to do. Been chatting with people today about what they think is necessary from Liverpool, and 2 signings minimum seems to be where a lot of people are at with regards to what we need to get done before the window slams shut on September the 1st. So let's see what we have ready for us this evening. Right. Much love from Brooklyn. How are we, Scott? Lovely to see you in, bro. Appreciate you as always. The news is coming in thick and fast here to me now. So this one here from SBT Sports, posted by LFC Transfer Room, they say that Liverpool are already engaging in negotiations with the entourage of Rodrigo. The Reds, who see the Brazilian as the perfect replacement for Luis Diaz, want to close the operation as soon as possible. That would be incredible. Look, the Isak situation is sort of up in the air for the minute. I think that's fair to say. But Rodrigo, Mark Gay, they're situations that Liverpool can resolve, and I hope do resolve. Well, let's wait and see what happens over the next few days. There is some theory that perhaps Crystal Palace want to try and hang on to Mark Gay until after the Europa Conference League playoff second leg against Fredrikstad. But I get it from their side, but from our side, do you really want to tempt fate with a player who you might be zeroing in on? I think it was already bad enough that Liverpool sat back and watched Mark Gay play in the first leg. I don't know if I feel comfortable with Liverpool waiting around to see if he can play in the second leg. That would be next Thursday. So again, clock is ticking on there. If something did happen, well, we'd be up against it. Right, what else we got? So David Thompson said, Duncan from Cop Talk TV has posted earlier today that Isak could use the FIFA rule Article 17. Yeah, I'll stop you right there, David. With respect to Duncan and anybody else that's banging on about this Article 17, it's quite simply a load of nonsense. I've discussed it many, many times, and I don't like people getting misinformation. Now, I'm not saying anybody's doing that intentionally, and certainly I'm not pointing the finger at Duncan because there's been loads of this, but it doesn't apply, because for Article 17 to come in, the player has to have a valid reason to leave the club. And let's say Newcastle hadn't paid him in a month, as an example. Well, that's one of the few reasons that perhaps Article 17 could be triggered. But in this scenario, think of it this way. People believe that he can buy himself out of the remainder of his contract and just walk off to Liverpool. But that leaves Newcastle absolutely out on the transfer fee. So what do you think happens there? Well, of course, they're going to go after Isak and Liverpool for compensation. So people need to look a little bit deeper into these things before trying to sound clever about them, because It's not possible. It won't be happening. And anybody that's trying to fill Liverpool fans full of optimism or hope that Isak can simply pay up 2-3 years of his contract and walk out the door, I believe they're very, very, very wrong. And it's certainly not something that we're going to be given any more light to on here. Chad, how are you, dude? Said, hey Craig, I want to see the match environment on Monday night. It will be intense. I'm feeling 3 incoming players next week. 2 would be okay, 3 would be great, Chad. I'm kind of on the fence as to what I think is going to happen. I feel comfortable we're going to get GUEHI at this point. It's certainly all signs are pointing in that direction. The stuff around Isak, well, I guess it depends where you're reading your information from, how you feel about this, because some Newcastle accounts and the likes of Luke Edwards are still out there giving it the big and saying, yeah, we'll see September the 1st. But like I've said all the way through, what do they win? You know, what do they actually win here if they keep Isak, an unhappy player who isn't going to give a shit and is going to want out with the next available turn? So even Lee Ryder was writing a piece earlier on, and it's for, I think it was the Newcastle Chronicle. It's the sister paper of the Echo. And I had a read of the article, and to be fair to Lee Ryder, it was a very well-written article that talked a load of sense. But one paragraph in Lee's article really jumped off the page to me, and I want to read it out to you guys now. Said, in business terms, what Newcastle's main backers, the PIF, will try to look at the most is paying a footballer £120,000 per week to train alone and not concentrate on the field and sell no shirts off it. It has no logic whatsoever. Which is right. Like I've said, there is no upside here to Newcastle. If Newcastle's owners think that they're going to prove a point by holding Isak there and not selling him, I don't know who they're trying to prove the point to, because in my opinion, the damage has already been done. Agents, players, they're going to look at what's gone on with Isak at Newcastle and they're going to think, do we need that headache? Do we need it? Like I've said, people think I'm being disparaging, but it really shows that Newcastle aren't ready yet. They aren't there yet as a club, as a fan base, and behind the scenes, they just don't know how to act in these situations. And it's been an absolute shit show from start to finish. How it ends up, it remains to be seen. But like I've said, if we don't get Isak, I won't lose any sleep over it as long as we bring in somebody else. But the damage has been done now to Newcastle's reputation. Newcastle charged atmosphere resulting in bad tackles. So, yeah, I've had a couple of people bring this up to me, Christian. I refuse to believe that players would go out to intentionally try to injure another player. I'm sure, yes, the atmosphere will get the players up, but that's a good thing. You know, the fans at Newcastle are always very supportive of their team. Same at Anfield for us when Liverpool are playing, and it's a big night like this. I just refuse to believe that a player would ever go out and intentionally try to hurt another player, because they understand what it feels like. You know, they understand what it's like to be out. They understand the rehab process and the mental toll it takes. So I think it's going to be a tasty game. I think everybody's going to go out to try and win it, of course, and prove a point. But yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say I believe they're going to go out to try and injure other players. I certainly don't think that's the case. Adam, thank you, bro. Said, hey, Craig, just want to say how much your streams helped me the last few months. My local authority are trying to cut my care hours from 24/7 to 5 a day. You've really helped me. Well, I hope you're okay. I hope that you can resolve the care that you need and get what you need. I'm really sorry to hear that. It's the budget cuts and stuff like that. It's soul destroying to hear, mate. People should get the help and the support that they need. So thank you so much for your lovely words about our community, mate. It really does mean the world to me. But my main concern here is to make sure that you and your family and yourself are okay, mate. So thank you for thinking of me, mate. But our thoughts are certainly with you. Right, so David said, we should keep Konate if he doesn't sign. So for me on the Konate situation, I just want to know what's happening. And I was told something today, and I mentioned it in our Discord group, but I don't feel comfortable in bringing it to the stream yet because I haven't been able to get a second source on it to corroborate what I've been told. So I don't want to say it in case it's wrong. But if we go for Mark A, I would be surprised if we have high hopes for Konate signing another contract. So let's wait and see what happens over the next week. But like I've tried to say all summer, like I said about the Trent situation as well before, I don't think it takes this long for a player to decide if they want to stay or not. So I think that decision's already been made, and let's wait and see how it's resolved. As a fan right now, I'm not holding out much hope of a new Konate deal, although I'd be happily, pleasantly surprised if one did happen, because like I've said, I just don't want us being left short. Mark Gay, great defender. Ibrahim Konate, on his day, great defender, good partner for Virgil. But I just want to know that he's focused and he wants to be at Liverpool. David, always lovely to see you in as well, my man. Appreciate you. Thank you. Right, let's get into some more of the news and see what you guys are thinking. So, Newcastle, Monday night. The preview is recorded. It's going to come out tomorrow. If you get a chance, do have a look at it and let me know what you think. And I'll let you in on a little secret. You talked me into putting Szoboszlai at right back. I wasn't sure. I sat there last night and thought about it while I was doing out my team. And with the interaction that we had on here, you've won me around. You've convinced me into it. So, little sneak preview. I will have Dom at right back in that team. And I'm expecting, if he does play the role, it to be played in a very Trent Alexander-esque type way, where he drifts infield and gets involved in the action and maybe creates overloads in midfield as well for us against that Newcastle midfield. George Edwards said, score prediction for Newcastle, 3-1 to Liverpool. I'll take that, mate. Ben Barrett said, the only difference between Visa and Isak is Visa hasn't refused to train and play. Geordie's are such hypocrites. So, I'm not pulling you up on this, Ben, because certainly not you that said it, but this narrative of refusing to train and play, Isak is training every day, up there about 3 o'clock, 3:30. And it wasn't Isak that pulled himself out of the game against Celtic. That was his manager. And that's where this all kind of started to snowball. So I've always found that narrative. And again, Ben, not aimed towards you, fella. I've always found it a strange one, because it doesn't really match reality, does it? Now, the pre-season tour, perhaps he did refuse to go on that. I'm not sure. But he is training every day. He's reporting there at about 3 o'clock, 3:30 when the other players have gone. And he's been met with a fair bit of abuse on his way in as well. Right, so Sasha Tavalieri thinks Newcastle and Bayern are ready to meet the price that Chelsea want for Nicholas Jackson. He goes on to say that both clubs are there for him and that Newcastle obviously view him as a replacement for Alexander Isak. On top of that, it does look as if the move or the rumoured interest from Newcastle in Strand Larsen of Wolves, that is not going to bear any fruit. That's probably, bit of a hiccup. That's probably the fairest way. Wolves just simply can't sell, won't sell, and totally understand why as well. Right, what's this one? Oh yeah, so there was also an article today that suggested that Real Madrid are having a look at Adam Wharton. Liverpool's name has been mentioned in this same piece. I think it was Dario AS or one of the Spanish outlets. So keep an eye on that one as well. It looks as if Real Madrid could be keeping tabs on Adam Wharton. From what I can gather, ahead of a potential future move, I'd be very surprised if they tried to do it in this window. Johnny said, what about Curtis at right back? I'd prefer Szoboszlai if I had to have one of the two, mate. Just as a personal preference, I'd prefer Dominic Szoboszlai. I just think he would suit the role a little bit better than Jones. But either way, hopefully it is just a one-game thing, and by the time Arsenal rocks around next Sunday, we've got the option of either at least Joe Gomez or maybe Bradley's trained enough. Now, again, don't rule both of those gents out of a possible start on Monday, but it's not looking great at the minute that either might be fit or the manager might deem them fit enough to play 60-65. The good Kev, thank you, mate. Member with us for 4 months as well. Appreciate you. Said, keep up the amazing work, mate. Look, it's a pleasure. Love being here with you guys and talking about football. I'm not going to lie, though, I am ready for this transfer window to come to an end. It has been a long, arduous summer with ups and downs, of course, but it's coming down to how we finish this window for me, with how the season's going to look for us. Ryan Sherwood, welcome to Anfield Agenda Ultras, bro. Appreciate you. Thank you for becoming a member. So, Visa is a good striker. Shame he's not a few years younger. So, for me, Colin, when I look at, and I mentioned this last night, when I look at the players that have left Brentford, and Visa included as a potential, he's probably the worst of the three that they had there for me, between Tony and Buomo and Visa. He'd be bottom of my priority list of those three. So, certainly not a player that I'd be hoping or wanting Liverpool to be interested in. But, like I said, let's see what Newcastle can do. So, I want to go back to another piece here from Sammy Mockbell of the BBC, who said nothing can happen before the game between Liverpool and Newcastle, but I'd be flabbergasted if Liverpool don't make some sort of approach next week for Alexander Isak. And that seems to be the perceived wisdom over the last 24 hours. Lots of journalists have been writing about expecting this bid to come from Liverpool after the game on Monday night. I've never really understood why wait until after Monday. I don't think it's going to make any difference to how Liverpool are going to be welcomed, shall we say, at St James's Park. So let's wait and see what happens. Liquid said, why are we going for a right winger and a striker when Fede is staying? So one thing that we have to admit about the Chiesa stuff is I'm not convinced that we're going to see the amount of games for Fede as we would have seen for a Diaz or somebody else in and around the team. So I still think longer term, Liverpool don't think Chiesa is going to fit with our model and is going to get the job done. That's just my gut feeling on it. So something was sent to me yesterday, and I'm going to try and send it in here, see if I can get it on the screen, because I know we talk about the options that Liverpool have or don't have, but I want to just bring it up on screen so we can physically look at them. I think it really does lay bare exactly how short we are. So bear with me. I'm going to drag this on screen. Right, so there you can see them. Right there now. Put it right in the middle so you can see it. That is the collection of forwards that Liverpool currently have at the club. So you can take the top 3, 4 and go, yeah, and then young Rio. So we've got a Chiesa who isn't match fit and has had very little minutes in the squad. We've got a 16-year-old kid who's only making his way into the game at this point. And then we've got a front 3. Very little depth. And for me, just looking at it written down like that, made it very clear to me we are absolutely short in attack. You know, looking at it, I just think it helps. You know, looking at the situation there right in front of you, I think reading through it, looking at the ages and thinking about the options, it shows we are very short in attack, in my opinion, and 1 is probably a bare minimum with what we could get away with bringing in. So, look, let's play Fantasy Manager for a second. Imagine ending this window with a Rodrigo, an Isak and a GUEHI. Now, look, I know it's the best case scenario, let's say, but all them avenues are still open at the minute, albeit the Isak one seemingly one of the ones that are somewhat out of Liverpool's control. Colin said we're lacking a number 9. I would say we're lacking a number 9 and a winger, probably, because I'm not convinced that we're going to see enough of Rio Ngamoa this season to justify taking a squad place away from a senior player, let's say. I hope he's introduced bit by bit, and I do think we will see him this season, but I don't think you're going to see him to the extent that maybe some naively believe. And with Chiesa, he just isn't match fit enough yet, so we're still quite away from Chiesa being ready to play or start 90 minutes. So I think we have 3 forwards, and then we're a little bit screwed if that happened one of them, or we needed to rotate. Honestly, we got to be realistic about this. You know, if, let's say, Salah picked up a knock on Monday night and was out for a month, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. We'd be, again, putting square pegs in round holes, trying to figure it out. So we need to get that squad depth, because whatever we say about last season and the options, and yes, we could improve in certain areas, there's no debating that, but we had the numbers at least. You know, whether you wanted to think Darwin was going to come on and change the game, or Diaz or Gakpo or whatever, at least we had the numbers. Now we've sold, well, you don't need me to go through the forward players we've moved on, but we've freed up spaces. We've got to fill them now. Joe O'Neill said, I don't think Liverpool, in fact, I know Liverpool wouldn't leave themselves that short without any transfers waiting to be announced. I hope you're right, Joe. But one thing, mate, that we, I guess, can't really debate is we're into the season now. You know, we played the first game with that squad. We're going to play the second game with that squad. So, you know, we're already into the season now and points are at stake. And we have 2 difficult games now. Obviously, we've got Newcastle and then we've got Arsenal before the September international break. So, yeah, I do agree with you, though, Joe, for what it's worth. I mean, like I said, these are very intelligent people that are taking care of the transfers at Liverpool. And, you know, they did move these guys out. So like yourself, Joe, I have to believe that there is plans in place. It's just as each day goes by, mate, and we still don't really have any resolution, I'm getting a little bit more nervy. But ultimately, I do think you're right. Where are we at with this one? Liquid from that one. Stevie, how are you, my friend? Hey, mate, am I the only one who thinks Konate's time is up? He's always had a mistake in him, but much worse now. His head is turned. Good player, not great. So, I've always thought Konate is... I think I agree, good but not great. I think that's a fair way of putting it. It's always hard to really judge a player when they're alongside Virgil because, does a bit of that Virgil magic spread to them, or do we expect too much of them? Do we have differently high standards when somebody's alongside Virgil? But with Konate, there's no denying he has a lot of great attributes, physicality. And Nick said something to me in our Discord group, which is a really fair point as well. The way our centre-backs are asked to play, it's probably one of the most demanding roles defensively in world football. A lot of the time they're left a little bit isolated when our wing backs or our full back bomb up forward, and they're being left with a lot of cover and a lot of work to do. So it is also a demanding role. Like if Konate was playing in a back three, he'd probably be a little bit more rigid, but he does have to do a lot of work. So I want to be fair to Konate when we have these conversations as well. But, could he be improved upon? What's the phrase I'm looking for here? If we just had a conversation, think, is there better centre-backs out there in the market that we could look at than Konate? I think, yeah, you'd have to at least say it's a possibility. And Mark Gay, I think, would certainly not send us in any way backwards if we were to sign him and replace Konate with him. Stevie Boy said, why sell Diaz then? So, again, this is a topic that actually came up today in a conversation. And it feels like Liverpool just thought it was too good business to turn down. So there was a number that Liverpool wanted for Diaz, and seemingly Bayern got to that number. Diaz wanted the move. Liverpool didn't want to really commit more money to Diaz than maybe Diaz wanted us to commit to him. So, seemingly sold. Now, I get where you're coming from. I think in the short term, it does give us a bit of a headache because, as I said, I don't think Rio and Gamoa is certainly ready to play 10 games in a row like Diaz could at this point in his career. But a year down the line, a little bit further, maybe this looks like a masterstroke. But it is a very fair point. And again, I kind of come back to we have to have a plan. You don't allow the likes of a Diaz to go unless you're pretty confident that you've got reinforcements on the way. Chris, how are you, sir? Said, which matchup this weekend will be the most important for the transfer window going our way? West Ham look so lost out there. I don't know. I really don't know what to expect this weekend. I don't know if you mean from our game or in general across the weekend, Chris. I just hope we don't have a conversation in a week's time, or maybe a week and a day's time, where we've gone through two difficult games and we haven't picked up enough points from them. Because you can't win a league title now, but you can certainly start to fall away. And I'm nervous with these next two games, mate. I am. If you offered me 4 points from these two games, I'd bite your hand off right now. Big mistake selling Lucho. More should have been done. So again, let's get to the point where we say the player didn't want to be here. And he didn't. Lucho wanted to move to Bayern. So, the club don't want to keep a player that doesn't want to be here. I, as a fan, don't want to keep a player that doesn't want to be here. But all of that aside, it doesn't really wash over the fact that we have left ourselves short. So I think we'll have this conversation on September the 2nd and see if we've resolved the issue or not. But right now, yeah, it's a fair point to be nervous about it because we have left ourselves with work to do. Vavanoi said, Gay is a good player, but he plays in a back three at Palace, so he might not be what people think he's going to be. Certainly is a very valid point. He plays left side of a back three. Lacroix plays in the centre of that back three. And I think they had Jefferson Lerma or somebody playing there the other night. They had to shoehorn a midfielder into the third centre-back position. I still think he'll be okay. In all honesty, I do. You can just tell by looking at Gay that he's a damn good player. Plays anywhere across the defensive line or in the centre-back positions. I mean, you could drop him into the right, you could keep him to the left. And I don't know, there's just steadiness there and a composure with him that I feel sometimes I see lacking in Konate anyway, mate. But it is a point you've raised that is certainly a valid one. He does come from a team that plays with a back three. Liz, I hope yourself and the family are well, Liz, over in sunny Florida. I really hope we get more good business done. I really think we're close to a massive squad. Yeah, we are like 2 or 3 top signings, Liz, away from a holy shit, what have we assembled kind of window. But for me, like I said last night, whether this window is a success or a failure is going to come down to the last 10 or 11 days of it. And as we sit here right now, if it closed tomorrow, I wouldn't be a happy fan. Very happy with the business we did do, but collectively, looking at it, the overall landscape, I wouldn't be happy because we've left ourselves short. West Side Stories. Thank you, sir, for your super chat again. Appreciate you. Said, I understand the club being fiscally responsible, just like the team may be feeling like they're not complete game week 2. I think we're in for a good surprise, but hard to be patient. So deep down, I agree. Like I said, I fail to think that we would have done this to ourselves and not had options up our sleeve. I like the way you've worded it as well. A nice or a good surprise. I think that's what I'm expecting. But like you've said, it is also hard to be patient, and I think that's fair as well. But, it is important what happens over the next 10 days. If I was to put money down, mate, I would kind of lean into what you've said. I'm expecting a nice surprise. I'm expecting that we have what we need and we'll get it in place. I am optimistic on that, but as each day goes by, I'd be a liar if I told you I'm not a little bit nervous. Right, the thing is, we signed 1 starting forward and lost 3. God bless Diogo sold, said David Coughlin. Yeah, you're right, mate. We did. There's no denying that. We've lost 4 if you want to count Ben Doak in it, which, I'll leave it up to yourself if you want to throw him in or not. But yeah, we've brought in 1 starting 11 player, or 1 what you'd say ready for the here and now forward. So can't push back against that whatsoever. Raekwon the Chef said, let's remember that Slot started Kwanzaa over Konate last season. I think the club is gearing up to replace Konate with Gay. So if I look at this and try to remove my own bias or whatever you want to call it from it, Raekwon, I look at it and I think exactly what you've said. No word, and it's really quiet around Konate. Like, I don't see much written about his circumstances at the minute from any of the Liverpool journalists. There was something a couple of weeks ago, but nothing new. So I can't help but feel the club are doing what you've said, looking to bring in Mark Gay, and then does Konate go now? Does he go when his contract's up? But either way, Raekwon, if I was to put money down, I would probably put it on the side of what you're saying there, that Liverpool are looking to bring in Mark Gay as a replacement because they can't get an agreement with Konate. Now, like I said, we're all just trying to read this from the outside, but I don't think... So you're not too far away from where my thought process is. Liz, I hope the procedure goes well for you Monday, my friend. We'll be thinking of you. I would say we'll say a prayer, but sure, I'm not a religious man, but we will be thinking of you, Liz. Asentino, thank you, bro. Gifting 5 memberships. Absolute legend. Thank you so much, dude, for that. You're very kind. Right, let's drop in and see how people are in the chat. Let's go. Mr. MH said, Craig, will Konate be used as a make-weight in a deal for Rodrigo? It's certainly possible. If I'm putting my fantasy manager hat on, yeah, I'd be doing that. I'd be trying to, see what Madrid would do or would be interested in on that one. There was a piece earlier on. I'm just going to try and find it here now. Where was it? Bear with me, sorry. There we are. So there was a piece earlier on that came from a Spanish newspaper that said Rodrigo's accepted he doesn't have a future under Alonso at Real Madrid and asked Florentino Perez to sell him. So you'd have to say, look, it might be us trying to put 2 and 2 together and coming up with 10, but it's not the most ludicrous idea in the world, is it? To try and tempt in Real Madrid with Konate if that's where he's ultimately maybe going to end up in the long term. So why not try it? If Rodrigo's somebody we want, we're moving for Mark Gay. Yeah, I'm not against that one bit. Where are we at? Josh Thompson said, Craig, do you see us using Leone this week with Frimpong out or sticking with experience? It'd be a big call, wouldn't it? Like a big call. Like imagine trying to drop in an 18-year-old in his first game in the league, sort of out of position, or maybe you even play him at centre back and push Konate across. But at St James's Park at 18, I tell you what, if he was played and he got through it and he did well, it wouldn't have to be a confidence booster, would it? But I don't know, it just feels like a big ask for somebody that hasn't really had much time to settle in yet. Be interesting to see though, Josh, over the course of the season, how much he does get used or how many times Arnold does feel he's ready to go. Certainly Arnold seems quite impressed from, what you're reading, and physically he's a monster of a fella, isn't he? So let me ask a question on Mark Gay. So I want to ask, do people think what you've said is right? So 1 second. Okay, so okay, so I've given you 3 options. I'm going to say, do you think the club are replacing Konate with Mark Gay? So 3 options, yes, no, or we will keep both. Received some lovely emails earlier on as well from people. It's always good to get a little laugh ahead of the weekend. Yeah, just basically, fans telling me to keep up the good work and wishing the family well and stuff like that. It's always nice, to get these kind emails and lovely well wishes ahead of the weekend. I needed something to chuckle about, so certainly brought a smile to my face. And I know the sender will be watching. And like I said in my email, I really do appreciate you making it so easy for me. Kaz, how are you? Said, I get more anxious as we get to the end of the window. I trust the club, but I hate business. Hoping fab news is coming our way and we can all breathe. So like yourself, I'd be a liar if I said I'm not a little bit nervous, but I am very firmly in the camp that believes the club have something up their sleeve. And I think what gives me that confidence as well is how well we operated at the start of the window. It definitely looked like there was a plan and we went out and we executed it flawlessly. So got to find some encouragement from that. But again, clock is ticking, and when you're under the gun and maybe you're somewhat reliant, Kaz, on other teams doing their business, it'll be interesting to see. Look, what we do know is Mark Gay is there to be gotten. That deal is there to be done if we want to push ahead with it. Rodrigo, well, I think it's fair to say he's out of favour at Madrid, if nothing else. We know the reports that his agent was over to have some talks. Let's see how they've gone. So yeah, some things very firmly under control, but the Isak thing, I struggle to get a read on the Newcastle side of this because they've been up and down and all over the place with the reportings, the briefings, what's happening, even listening to Eddie Howe talk. And, they have to talk about a possible reconciliation, but I don't see it really, do you? Like, do you think Isak's forgotten his drive into training every day and the abuse he's been receiving and the banners outside? He's not going to forget that, is he? He's going to see how quickly it turned from love to hate. And I'm not saying Newcastle fans are alone in this. Every club's fan base, when they feel disappointed or let down by a player, it hurts. But like I've said, Isak seems really intent on moving, and it'll be interesting to see what does happen because they're not winning in this. If they keep him there, they've won nothing. If they let him rot in the reserves, they've won nothing. They just look petty on the world stage. So let's wait and see what pans out. Mahmood said, GUEHI and Konate out doesn't solve the issues. Same. It depends what you think the issues are, Mahmood. So for me, the issues were somewhat resolved when we signed Giovanni Leone. Because if we were going into this season and Kwanzaa didn't go, but we all believed Kwanzaa was going to get game time, we would have 4 senior centre-backs, a young centre-back in Nello, and then the likes of Endo who can play there at a push. So, would I prefer 5? Yeah, I would, mate. If I'm being really honest, what I'd love to happen is Konate to sign an extension and GUEHI to stay, or to come in and stay with us for years to come. But I feel like the club will be happy with 4. You know, but I do get where you're coming from. Be nice to have that extra body, but I just don't expect it. But I do think it does fix something because at least it gives us what's the word I'm looking for? It gives us some certainty in a situation that at the moment is uncertain because Konate is now inside the last year of his contract. If you bring in GUEHI on the new deal, you've just renewed Virgil, you've just brought in Leone, at least you know where you are, you know? At least you know you've got players there for the foreseeable. Calling Dr. Jones said Arsenal have had a better window in my opinion. Thoughts? So I've kept track of a good bit of Arsenal's business, not all of it. So Norgard, Zubamendi, Madueke, Eze coming in. Have I missed any more? If I have, apologies. Like I said, I'm sort of barely keeping up with their business. They've had a good window. I would say if we get in a forward and a centre-back, I would say we've had the better window. But they have certainly given us something to think about. And, you know, I think they are going to be a major threat for a big trophy this year. So, yeah, they've had a good window. I agree with you on that one, but I don't know if I'd say better. I guess that's probably going to become apparent when we see how the players settle in. But they've brought in good players. Like Zubamendi, we know was a good player. Madueke, I'm not really sure about, to be honest with you. That one still feels a little bit uncertain. Eze, good player. Here and now player that at least puts pressure on Odegaard or will give Arteta another option in attack. Alex, it'd be interesting to see if Spurs can pull it off tomorrow. I mean, Spurs, let's be honest, there's not much to cheer about for Spurs fans in the window so far. They got in Kudus, is a great bit of business, and I think he'll do really well there. But losing Eze, and what they've also done, and I haven't really seen much about this, Alex, is they've also told Richarlison pretty bluntly they're willing to get rid of him, you know, because they were wanting to offer him as part of the deal. So they've almost undermined themselves with that not working out. What's this one? It looks as if Nuno's going to be fired from Nottingham Forest, is the way things are looking now. I'm sure you've probably seen his comments in the press conference earlier on. The briefings from the Nottingham Forest side of this seem to be that they almost feel like he's trying to get himself sacked. But, you know, reports here now from Ben Jacobs say it's not looking... what's this? Well, let me just read this out properly. So, Ben Jacobs said, as of Friday night, Nuno Espirito Santo is expected to take charge of Forest game against Palace on Sunday. However, his position as manager is by no means safe in what is proving an evolving situation. A rift has developed between Nuno and Edu with the arrival of the ex-Arsenal sporting director, resulting in less direct contact between the owner, Mariakis, and Nuno this summer. In particular, Nuno was unhappy Edu didn't sign Fulham's Adama Traore, although unclear how easy a deal would have actually been to pull off. Despite a high volume of business, some of which Nuno drove, there is a feeling that the club's approach to recruitment, including establishing a bigger squad to cope with domestic and European demands, isn't one the Forest boss is comfortable with and hasn't been for several weeks. So, and you won't believe this, but the manager that's been mentioned as potential replacement is Ange Postecoglou. So you could see a world where Forest go from an uberly defensive, counter-attacking team of pace to Ange. That'll be interesting. Where was I at? This one from Mahmood. How are we, sir? Said, having good depth in defence, I don't think is enough. If Konate gets injured, not even going to take... talk about Gomez, looking at history, can risk like this. I don't disagree, mate. You know, like I've said, in an ideal world, Mahmood, I'd love us to get a fifth centre-back as well. I don't want Endo playing there because, you know, he can play there, but we wouldn't sign him as a centre-back, so we have to admit we're shoehorning him in if we do. So yeah, in an ideal world, Konate would extend, GUEHI would come in, and maybe then we look at Gomez's future in January or at the end of the season. But if we put faith in Gomez to stay fit all year, it's defo a risk, especially when we know Bradley's had a few knocks as well at right back. So, you know, and then we have Frimpong, who may have to cover for Bradley, also may have to cover for Salah. You're starting to look at it and think, are we leaving ourselves a bit stretched, even with the versatility of the squad? Dazzy said, I think Man City saying they're keeping Savinho and not going for Rodrigo is to save face as he wants Liverpool over them, possibly. Well, one thing that when I heard about Manchester City's apparent interest in Rodrigo, I did have to wonder how that would go down, right? Because he'd be going to a Barcelona legend from Real Madrid. Now, I know it'd be Manchester City be the club he's moving to, Dazzy, but yeah, that one was, for me, was an interesting one. But like you, maybe this is us being a bit arrogant, but I do think he would pick Liverpool or would want Liverpool. But what I don't know is how serious our interest is in Rodrigo and what the package may look like financially. So watch this space, I guess, for the next few days. Konate doing a Trent and Sterling, in my opinion, cannot afford to get burnt again. I agree. At this point, I think you will know if a deal can be reached with Konate or not. And it doesn't seem that one is close, at least not what I'm seeing in the media and not what I'm starting to hear. I guess the question for me is going to be, if we do follow through and sign Mark Gay, do we let Konate play the last year and go for free, or do we try to engineer a situation where we recoup some money in this window? There's two ways to look at it. Selfishly, we might think, as we were discussing, that's a fifth centre-back option for us for the season. You know, maybe Konate is going to be a first choice, but he could still be there as a good option. And then we've got the other side of it, which is, like I've always said, don't like players who know the future isn't going to be at the club, playing and then leaving for free in their prime to go to Madrid. So wait and see what happens there. Right, let's get back and check the poll. So we asked, do you think the club are replacing Konate with Mark Gay? If you haven't voted yet, please do. Obviously, we've given you three options there. Yes, they are looking to replace Konate with Gay. No, they aren't, or we will keep both. And also be interesting to see if Liverpool did look to maybe sell Konate, what they would put as a valuation on Ibu, considering he's in a similar situation to Mark Gay, but you know, doesn't have the homegrown additional premium, I guess. Jordan said, sorry from late, Craig, what I miss about Isak. I haven't really got stuck into the Isak stuff just yet, my man. I'm going to do it now in 1 second and try and link it all together for you. So just bear with me for a moment. Kaz said she thinks I missed her chat. 1 second, Kaz, let me fly through. No, I read the one about us getting more anxious. I get more anxious, we get to the end of the window. Trust the club, but I hate late business. Maybe I didn't, either way, I'll do it again. So I get more anxious, we get to the end of the window. I trust the club, but I hate late business. Hoping fab news is coming our way and we can all breathe. I don't think there was another one I missed, Kaz. Let me scroll back just to check. Yeah, I think that was it. But on that one, I agree, Kaz. I don't like late business either, but sometimes in football it feels like everybody's almost determined to wait till the end of a window and then loads of shit starts happening. I'd rather it didn't. Like you said, I'd rather early business, give the manager time to work with the players on the training ground. But, you know, this is kind of where we find ourselves at the minute. Right, so I guess let me try and link all the stuff together. So I was watching, I was looking at a couple of screenshots that were sent my way earlier on from some Newcastle accounts who were talking about the situation. And they're saying that Craig Hope has basically said it's very unlikely that Isak will leave before the window shuts. And I couldn't really find those quotes when I went looking, to be honest, but I did see a good piece and a good few quotes from Lee Ryder, which I've spoken about earlier on. And he said, in business terms, what Newcastle's main backers, PIF, will look at the most, paying a footballer £120,000 a week to train alone and not contribute on the field and sell no shirts off it, has no logic whatsoever. Also, he said, the game may change for Alexander Isak after Monday as he eyes Liverpool move. So that's encouraging, to say the least. And there's been a few kind of variations of that. Like Sammy Mockbell, BBC, said nothing can happen before the game between Liverpool and Newcastle, but I'd be flabbergasted if Liverpool don't make some sort of approach next week for Isak. And that's kind of the flavour of what I've been hearing as well. Jamie Carragher has been speaking about the situation as well. And Carra said, if Liverpool bid more than £130 million, it's too much. You'd want Kylian Mbappe for the fee. Now, I think Carra needs to stop with this Kylian Mbappe comparison, because I think we all know if Kylian Mbappe went to the open market right now, you're not getting him for £130 million. I think it'll be way, way, way higher than that. And technically, it was a free signing for Madrid. He said, from the moment Isak made his debut against Liverpool at Anfield, he has stood out, but there are concerns, which I can't disagree with. There are. He said, now 25, he's yet to prove he has the durability of Salah. He's failed to start 36 games over his 3 seasons in England, and 10 of his last 44 goals, league goals, were penalties. He would not be taking them at Anfield. But what I'd like to kind of push back a little bit on there is, he might not be taking them at Anfield, but the whole idea of this, of what Liverpool are trying to do, is to take the burden off Mohamed Salah. Like, we've spoken at length about him having 52% or something like that of the goal involvement for Liverpool last season. So the idea is to take the burden and the onus off Mo and to share the goals around. So maybe Gakpo chips in with his fair share, which he does, to be fair. You know, Ugo Ekitike as well, Isak. That's the thought process here, is not to be somewhat reliant. And of course to look to the future as well. Where are we at? Carbon said, hey Craig, how are you doing? I think if we do sell Konate, we should swap Rodrigo plus cash. I agree. You know, get Mark Gay, and if Konate won't sign, try to do a deal with Rodrigo, with Konate going in the other direction. That would certainly be the common sense thing for me, Carbon, and I think a couple of people in the chat would probably agree with you. I want to just read you out a stat, because there's been lots spoken about Florian Wirtz and his first game in a Liverpool shirt in the Premier League. But one thing, and it's a good piece on Sky, so certainly I would say to you, go and check out on the Sky Sports website or on the app. They speak about the things that have gone unnoticed about Florian Wirtz. And one of those things is the high-speed runs. So in his first game, he had more high-speed runs of 59 than anybody else. And Bowen next with 50, João Pedro 46. Then you go down to metres covered running at speed. And again, he tops that by a substantial amount. So Lucas Bergvall with 849 metres running at speed. Dan Ndoye, 800. Brian Mbeumo, 793. Marshall Munetzi, 761.5. Florian Wirtz ran over a kilometre. 1004.91 metres sprinting, running at high speed. And on top of that, covered a lot of distance as well. So maybe people didn't quite see the fluidity in his performance that we'd hoped and expected, but it isn't from a lack of effort. And that is something that really stood out to me watching Florian Wirtz, is that he does continuously keep moving, closing people down and putting in the hard yards. Where are we at? Let's go back to our poll before we get into more chats. Right. So, we've gone over 2,000 votes, and 69% of people think the club are looking to replace Ibrahim Konate with Mark Gay. Second most popular answer was 20% of people said we'll keep both. And then no is the third place answer with 9%. And thank you to everybody that took part in the poll. Chris, how are we, sir? Chris Tat Music, 20 months with us as a member as well. Chris, thank you. So, Craig, do you reckon we get all the business done? What I'm expecting is a forward and a centre-back situation sorted. Now, I don't mind if the centre-back situation sorted is Konate signing a new deal and we don't bring one in. But it's certainly looking like a move for Gay is happening. So if we get in a forward and Mark Gay, I think that's barely enough. If I was being transparent about what I really want, it's two forwards and Mark Gay. So do I think we get it all done? I think we get the two done, but three I'm up in the air about. I'm not really sure. Mahmoud said Rodrigo will cost between 250 and 250k per week. That sounds about right, to be fair, mate. Maybe think about it like this. So Luis Diaz was on a reasonable wage. It's up in the air about which wage he was on. Some reports are saying 60. Others were briefed at 140-ish. But the way I might think about it, Mahmoud, is maybe Liverpool didn't feel committing a pot of money to bring Diaz up to that kind of level of your 170s, 180s, 200 grand a week. Maybe they felt like they'd be better served putting that money in a younger player like Rodrigo, as an example, and maybe giving him that money over the course of time. They feel his money better spent. Now, again, we are all just having a conversation here about it. Nothing is set in stone, but I could see a world where that was possibly why. Because for whatever reason, Liverpool seemingly didn't want to give the money to Newcastle, or to Diaz for the contract. So we've got a bit of news around Nicholas Jackson here that just came in from Transfer Sector. Mark sent it on to me, and it's a direct quote from Max Erbel, the head of sport at Bayern Munich. Because if you remember an article I read out to you earlier on, we were discussing the fact that Nicholas Jackson, according to Sacha Tavolieri, is of interest to Bayern and Newcastle mainly. Now, I know, obviously, we've spoken about Aston Villa and their interest there as well, so don't rule that one out. But Max Erbel has just said Nicholas Jackson is no topic for us. So a denial that Bayern are interested in Nicholas Jackson there from Max Erbel. So let's wait and see. But certainly removes one obstacle for Newcastle on the table, but certainly still interested to see if if Aston Villa make that move, because of course they worked together, didn't they, at Villarreal, Unai Emery and Nicholas Jackson. A lot of teams seem to be leaving it late, though, to make any type of moves in this window. Like Chelsea have a lot to get done. You know, they have an agreement with UEFA as well about balancing out the books on transfer fees and stuff. So they have a bit to get done. Villa have a bit to get done. Obviously, Spurs have something to get done. Newcastle, Liverpool. So a lot of clubs leaving a lot of business till very, very late. Oshin, how are we, sir? And thank you for your super chat. Appreciate it. Oshin said, sick of this Isak saga. Big bid Tuesday, Wednesday. Feels like Isak's the one. Rodrigo only if it falls through. Dream, keep Konate, sign Gay and Isak. Dynasty vibes. Love the stream, boss. Well, thank you. I get it. I get the fatigue on Isak, mate. I'd be a liar if I told you it hasn't worn me down a little bit as well. You know, it's been a roller coaster. Ups, downs, highs, lows. But I think if you get the guy, it's all worth it, right? If you don't get the guy, you feel a bit deflated about it. But like you said, if we got them all in, dynasty vibes is right, mate. It would be incredible. But let's not forget, that's kind of what we were told was the plan this summer, to create this team that can go challenge in all competitions and can win. So let's wait and see what happens. So I want to ask a very simple question at the minute in the next poll. It's not about a player in particular. So I'm going to just ask, do you trust the process that we will get these things done before the end of the window? Yes or no? Because I'd love to get an indication of how people are feeling in general about the transfer window. We know what's left in it. Today we sit here just about to go into the 23rd, Friday going into the Saturday 23rd. We know it closes on the 1st at I think 11 p.m. So do you trust the process? Because they've probably earned some trust with the great business they've done early in the window. And Richard Hughes certainly seems to have handled himself very, very well in the market this summer. But it is taking that leap of faith to trust the next 10 to 11 days. And I can understand why my fellow Liverpool fans are a little bit tetchy about it, because you still look at the net spend and you still think where we're at is kind of in FSG's sweet spot. So do we really kick on and push on? Well, let me know with the poll. West Side Story said, Rodgers, thoughts on late Bowen bid. So Bowen I just don't see happening for a couple of reasons. One, age profile wise, I don't think Michael Edwards would really be looking to move for a Jared Bowen, who I think is 29 or 30. Also, very long contract. And look, if they sold Bowen right now, they're admitting they're getting relegated. You know, he is one of the few shining lights, maybe with Lucas Paqueta in that team. So I can't see a world, man, where it happens. 2-3 years ago, I would have bitten your hand off for Jared Bowen. He's perfect for the way that we played, especially under Jurgen. Itachi, lovely to see you again, my friend. Said, Isak situation drives me crazy. We want each other. Newcastle won't sell unless they have a striker, but they ain't going to get one. Do they still see Isak as the number one striker? Please bid 130 Liverpool. So, like I've said, there is no winning, whatever happens for Newcastle here. There is whether they're going to be sensible or whether they're going to cut their nose off to spite their face. Will they get forwards in? I think they will get at least one, which it'll be interesting to see what happens then. Whatever happens, like even in the scenario where Isak stays, he'll go through the motions for the season. But like I've said, he's not going to put himself about as much. He remembers and will remember all the shit that was thrown at him and all the abuse he's been receiving and the way he was seemingly thrown under the bus by Newcastle with broken promises and stuff. So I don't see what the winning is for Newcastle in it. They keep an unhappy player to prove a point to who? Because all they're proving in my eyes is not to send players to Newcastle if you plan on spending 3 or 4 years there, moving on to the next step in your career. All they're showing now is that they don't know how to handle it when that time comes around, because they can prepare for what they were told was going to happen. And actually on that, their own manager has admitted they had those conversations, him and Isak. So let me get back to some of these comments. Which one is it? Sorry, I've got some... So, where are we at with this? There were some quotes I wanted to read through. So, Eddie Howe said, he won't be part of the squad this weekend. The club has to act in the best interest of Newcastle United. We'll do that in every situation. It looks like it's coming to an end, or it'll come to an end pretty soon. On top of that, he was asked if Isak told him he wanted to leave 2 weeks before the end of the season, and he said, me and Alex had conversations towards the end of the season. Yes, I'm not going to sit here and deny that. Yes, we had discussions about his future. So Isak informed Newcastle at the very least 2 weeks before the end of the season, so mid-May, that he wanted to leave and his plan was to leave. And there was another piece yesterday that said, within football, I'll read it out actually again because I don't like misquoting. Let me read this out to you, that bit from yesterday, because I think it is important. So, Lewis Steele said, Liverpool remain on the sidelines waiting to see what happens. Of course, they still want Isak, and they'll absolutely do a deal if opportunity allows. It's the second part of this that intrigues me. A story is circulating in well-placed circles, not connected to either club, but familiar with the inner workings of the transfer industry, that Isak was under the impression that a bid of £100 million or more would see his release from Newcastle this summer. So, you've got That story circulating in the game, not connected to either club, but within the game, you've got Isak telling Newcastle he wanted to leave. You've got Eddie Howe admitting that conversation happened. It does seem as if he probably expected to move this summer, but Newcastle haven't been able to do their part in this and find replacements. So it's it's interesting at this point. Certainly feels like it's Newcastle shitting the bed. That's how I read it from the outside. Dalglish said, surely Eddie Howe slipped up a bit today in his tough interview. The only quick end is Isak leaving. If he is forced to stay, it's not like he's back in training right away. The questions will rumble on. Absolutely, mate. I agree with you. And I've said this all the way through the window. Remember what happened with us last year with Trent and Mo and Virgil, but to a bigger extent, Trent. That's going to happen all season for Newcastle if he stays. Every week, there'll be another article written about how Liverpool are coming back in January, how the player still wants out, how he's given his word to Liverpool. It'll be over and over and over, and it will just hang over Newcastle's season. And if they don't have a season that goes the way that they want and their fans want, he'll be vilified again. It'll be all his fault. It's just I agree 100% with what you've said, mate. It makes absolutely no sense to keep him there because it is going to rumble on and on and on and on. Colin says, just to say thanks for helping me get through life. Oh, dude, honestly, I think we're all helping each other at this point, trying to get through. And there's definitely been times where I've been blessed to get some help. Do you know, I want to just say something really quickly. You know the way sometimes I open up about my own issues and problems? What's very difficult is every time I do it, somebody sends me an email. So I talked about my parents and my mum taking her own life, and like that, 5-6 emails telling me to do what my mum did, telling me to do what my dad did, and take my own life. So I talk about not being able to look in the mirror. Again, whole lot of emails saying, you hate yourself, we all hate you, blah, 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 blah. This is my life. This is what I deal with every single day. So when I come on sometimes and people say to me, ignore the trolls, you only see a little snapshot of it. It's gotten out of hand, some of the stuff that I get sent. Like, it really is. Like, obviously, I don't feel in any physical danger or anything like that, but if I could give you a snapshot of some of the shit I get sent, it is truly disgusting. And if it was happening to a famous person, it would be all over the news and Sky, because I want to speak about mental health. I want to open up about my own struggles, and I want to try to let other people know that, we all have these moments in life. There's nothing to be ashamed of, and you can battle through it, and you can get some help with the professionals and stuff like that. But when you do it, the internet shows you what a scumbag-ridden place it is, and you get bombarded with hate and telling you to do this to yourself and do that to yourself. It's demoralizing because you think this is the future of the planet. These are the next generation sending this shit, and I don't know what makes them all so bitter and angry. I actually feel sympathy for them. But yeah, to get back, Colin, like I was saying, man, you guys have helped me through a lot as well. So definitely no need to ever thank me on anything. It's a community spirit in here means a lot to me, and we all look out for each other. Mahmood said, if Liverpool only signed GUEHI, how would you rate FSG? So no Isak, no Rodrigo. I mean, it's hard to know where to point the finger of blame. Like, I'm somebody that ultimately feels the ownership are responsible. Now, you might say, and I had this debate with David Lynch a few times when we did videos together, that these guys are empowered to do their business. And I guess there's probably a lot of truth to that. Certainly seems to be a lot of trust in the process and what Hughes has done this summer. So how would I rate it? I think wherever I want to assign the blame to, it wouldn't be good enough. And it would be an undermining of our chances to go and win the league again. Mahmood, we wanted to go into this season and strengthen from a position of strength. I don't think we've strengthened. We've brought in great players, but strengthening means we have the calibre everywhere. When Arne looks to the bench, he doesn't have a player he doesn't fully trust or somebody that isn't at the level required. It is to be able to rotate and compete in every competition. And we aren't there yet. It isn't to say that the players we brought in aren't very good players. They are. But we have to, as fans, look at the whole squad and the depth of it. And if we just got GUEHI between now and the end of the season, I don't think there's a hope in hell we retain the Premier League. None. Because we are way short in attack. And, when Mo goes away and we are going to have a form dip, I can just see fatigue setting in. And again, we're praying not to have an injury to any of the starting forwards. So yeah, I would say it would have undermined the whole great start to the window, and we wouldn't have the depth to win the league. I would put us at very little chance to win the league if we don't get another one, maybe two forwards in. I don't mean that to sound negative, I'm being honest. We just don't have that strength and depth across the front line. We've always had some vulnerabilities in defence the last few years. So you would expect that may still be there. Yes, we can improve a bit, but yeah, I just don't think there's any chance we win the league unless we get some more forwards in. The King is in the house, not Mo, a different one. Elvis, how are we? Fans are starting to call out Hughes and Edwards for selling so many forwards and bringing only one. Hope Isak comes in, getting worried myself. So I'm biting my tongue. It's probably the fairest I can be about it, mate, at the minute. I can understand why people are questioning at this point. I'm in a bit of a quandary. Do you speak up now? Do you moan about it now? Or do you wait and see what happens? If you wait and see what happens, you're talking about it when the window shuts and no moaning is going to change the situation. But I want to trust the process, and I want to try to give them the chance to work on what they've done really well early in the window, because we've spent some good money, we've recouped a lot of money, and there is probably a lot of credibility to the thought process that somebody mentioned yesterday that Liverpool are maybe freeing up that space and wage bill money now for that last push at the end of the window. And if it all comes together, hopefully we'll all be happy by the end of it. Chat, how are we? So I had to leave for a bit, so forgive me if you've covered this. I heard twice this morning that Liverpool may include Chiesa with their final offer for Isak. That would put us back with low numbers up front. Tell me that was BS. I've not seen anything to back that up. Now, I had seen something that Bayern Munich were interested in Chiesa, and Chiesa's camp said no. But I've not heard anything about Chiesa being included in the Newcastle bid. Now, hypothetically, let's try to work this through. The only way, Chad, I would say you could get away with that is if you brought in a Rodrigo as well. So if you ended the window with Isak, Rodrigo, Ekitike, Salah, Gakpo, Rio and Gamoa. That's enough. That's, 5 senior, 1 junior. That would be okay. But if you sold Chiesa just as part of the Isak deal and didn't bring in somebody else, madness. Absolute madness. So yeah, I can't see that one having legs to it. Unless, like I said, the second forward comes in. Itachi said they should take our £130 million, give Eddie the money to build something great, and the PSR wiggle room as well. So, but they're running out of time. It feels like they're trying to spend the money before they get the money at this point. So, let's say Newcastle bring in Visa and another £60 million player. So, let's say they spend 95 to £100 million now on players. Let's be adult about this. They have to sell. Not necessarily saying it has to be Isak, but they have to sell. They've said themselves they've been hamstrung by PSR. So going out to do this shopping, the only way they can do that shopping is by funding it with wiggle room from PSR from losing somebody else. So I've never believed this bullshit about, we want Ekitike, we want Isak as well, because they just don't have the wiggle room to do it. They just don't. What's this one? Right, so this just come in from Dean Jones around Harvey Elliott, and he said, Harvey Elliott wants to leave Liverpool before the transfer window closes and has chosen RB Leipzig as his preferred destination. So Dean Jones, I believe, works with ESPN, if my memory's right. So again, a report there to say Elliott wants to leave Liverpool and his preference is RB Leipzig. So, you'd imagine Leipzig going to sell Xavi Simons, Chelsea looking for him. That money, you'd have to imagine at this point Liverpool and Leipzig have spoken about a number. Like, they have to be aware of what Liverpool are looking for. So if this starts to progress through, I can't see they're going to dwell on the number. It has to be fairly quick at this point. Righteous Gamer, how are you, my friend? Can you see the bid going in on Monday as a mind game tactic before the game and give Newcastle something to think about? I think it would be funny. So, no. But what I could see is Liverpool going up there and Richard Hughes having a conversation after the game or around the game with some of the Newcastle board and trying to figure it out in person. It'll be very, very interesting to see if we can get some images of Richard Hughes up at that game at St. James's Park on Monday. But no, I don't think just before the game, because if we did that, they might view that as an insult again and, dig their heels in some more. Do you think that Isak invokes FIFA's Article 17 in August? No, because it's not possible. I keep hearing about this and I keep wanting to just ask yourself this as fans. So whatever any other Liverpool channel or podcast or fan page says, have you seen one single top tier journalist anywhere talk about Article 17 being invoked? Romano hasn't said anything about it. Ornstein hasn't said anything about it. Joyce hasn't said anything about it, because it's not possible. So again, I would say, look at where you're getting your information from. You can check it yourself. I did a bit of research on it to have a look at the article and what it said. And there are a limited set of circumstances that type of thing is possible in without legal recourse. So no, that isn't going to happen. And do you not think if it was possible next week, it would be everywhere? That Romano would be on about it, Ornstein would be on about it, Joyce would be on about it, all the lads of the Echo would be on about it. It'd be written about everywhere. And everybody would just say, well, what's the point in even waiting or bidding? Just let them do it. It would make the whole process easier. But think about it logically. If he bought himself out of his contract for the remaining 3 years, that's only covering the wages. That's not covering the 70 million quid Newcastle paid up front for him or the transfer fee they're going to lose for him. It never made sense. But again, people trying to sound clever that aren't clever, putting this shit out there. It's damaging. And it undermines credibility of a lot of what we do. And I don't know where this whole conversation around Article 17 started, but I've seen it far and wide at this point, but not anywhere there's any credibility. Hoarder, thank you, man. Thank you. This stuff, I wish it didn't happen in life, mate. I wish it didn't, but no amount of threats, email, family abuse, anything else like that is going to stop me. None of it. Nothing's going to stop me. If they want to stop me, well, they best put a bullet between my eyes, because it's the only way they're stopping me, because nothing is going to keep this man down. And I'm working for my family to make a better life for them. And none of these little toe rags that haven't got the fucking bottle to do what I do or to front up to me are going to stop me. They'll watch on. They'll be jealous. They'll be bitter. They'll be angry. That's all they can do. They don't have the talent, the charisma, the personality, the intelligence. None of it. They just sit at home being angry at the world for their own failings, but not having the wherewithal to get up off their own arse and do something about it. Mr. H and friends, how are we? That package is on its way to you, by the way. I meant to email you. So we got a couple of things. One thing I do want to say to you while I have you here, if I can. You mentioned about your daughter's age, your eldest daughter's age. I don't want to speak too much about it on the stream, but I had to go up a size in the little gift for her. So that's on its way to you, by the way. And I hope you should have it in the next couple of days for your brand new baby. And of course, for your elder daughter as well. Nobody kicks a dead dog. You've achieved so much, Craig. It's pure jealousy. Just don't burn yourself out. Someone told us, where's the abortion button about Alyssa? Man. Do you know what I often ask myself about Mr. H? Imagine that was their sister, mother, aunt, cousin, friend. You know, it just doesn't have any sense to it, does it? Like, there is no positive side of it. Whatever's making these people feel this angry and bitter with the world, I hope they find a way out of it. Because I'm sure deep down these aren't all bad people. You know, maybe they've been led in the wrong direction. Maybe they feel they're part of something in these little troll groups. Maybe they feel a sense of belonging that they've been lacking in their life from other places. I'm lucky. I got a good grounding in sport when I was younger. You know, being around teammates and sacrificing yourself for others and being part of a movement. I kind of got my need fixed there. Others, maybe they get it in their jobs. Maybe they go to the army and they feel that compatriotism, that sense of belonging. I hate it. I hate it. I hate that people are feeling that way, and I hate that people say those type of things. And there's just no need for it. I mean, especially somebody like me. If you want anything from me or would like a chat with me or an email from me, it's easy to get me. Like, I'm not rude. You know, if these people wanted to get to know me a bit better rather than throwing hate at me, I'm always approachable. This is what makes it sad. I think we've a good finish to the window, said Neil. And thank you, bro, with us 5 months as a member. Virginia said there was a bit about Elliot being included in a trade for Isak, but I can't remember where I heard it. So for me, that would have been something I would, if I was a Newcastle fan, Virginia, that would have been something I would be thinking, why not? Because, I think he'd fit in really well at Newcastle. But there's never been something I've really seen much written about or spoken about. It seems from that Dean Jones post tonight that Elliot wants to go to RB Leipzig. So we'll see what happens there. If they can get the move together, obviously he'll go there, play over there for a few years, and you would imagine Liverpool will put the buyback option in it, and let's see what happens. But it's a sad one because there's no denying Harvey loves Liverpool. We all love him to bits. But I do understand entirely that he wants to build on the success he had with the under-21s in the Euros. He wants to try to get himself into Thomas Tuchel's senior squad for the World Cup. And he needs and deserves to play more minutes. So I get it. It's a difficult situation, but I understand why maybe he feels the need to go in search of more game time. But it certainly isn't for a lack of love for the club. We all know that. Right, Harvey Elliott wants to leave Liverpool before the window closes and has chosen Leipzig. Just confirmation of that again from Dean Jones. Benjamin Clark, thank you. Really appreciate you, my friend. Righteous Gamer, F the haters, Craigo, we're with you. Thank you. Appreciate that, mate. Yeah, I do. Some of these little clowns about to get taught a lesson in fucking with the wrong people. And they will. And I don't mean that in a physical threat. I mean, again, there's always an error. There's always a slip. There's always a mistake. And unfortunately for them, this has escalated to a really, really, really high level. And they think they're funny, giggling, laughing. When the anti-terror squad knocks on their front door, we'll see who's laughing. For as good as the technology has made our lives, it also allows the dregs of society to pop up. Your stream got me through heart issues last year. Thank you, bro. I hope you're through those heart issues. Look, I don't think I'd have gotten through the COVID situation if I wasn't in here with you guys every night. That was a real connection to the outside world that I really needed, even though we hadn't got much footy to talk about. And it's the side of this that I guess most surprised me when I started making content. I always knew to be wary of the bad side of the internet. I expected that, and I learned quite quickly to come off social media. But this has been a lovely part of it. A very pleasant surprise. Like, I spoke yesterday, you can see I'm wearing again another Huskers Adidas top that Chad very kindly sent from America for me in a lovely package that arrived yesterday that made me just think, wow, like this gentleman whom I've never met thought enough of me to send me these gifts from America. for no other reason other than to be a damn nice human being. You know, how does that not make you smile? I love that side of it. I love that we've all got this connection, that we're all part of each other's day-to-day routines at this point. And I wish that those that sat on the outside spewing hate towards us came in and enjoyed themselves with us, because there's a lot to like here, a lot of great people in here. And I feel like we could be that good influence on these people that maybe they don't have at the minute. And you guys can certainly be it. I hope Elliot doesn't go to Leipzig after getting beat 6-0 tonight by Bayern. Yeah, they've had a messy last couple of years. Now, I don't follow the Bundesliga all that intensely, but there's a lot of work to be done there, like you said. I think there was a Kane hat-trick that I'd seen. There was a goal from Luis Diaz as well in that game tonight. But certainly there was work to do at Leipzig. But I guess he has Jurgen there overseeing things as well. And he might feel it's just a good place where he can get that development, play in a good standard of league, and maybe push himself into the manager's thinking for the World Cup. Right, let's keep going. Where are we at? So, we asked, do you trust the process to get the players signed? We're heading towards 2,000 votes, so if you haven't voted, please do. Still enough time left in the stream. We're going to go a little bit later tonight, obviously, because we started later. So, got about 20 minutes left in tonight's stream, so do get your comments in. There will be a late night news video as well. Tomorrow, no live stream. Tomorrow, we'll have the preview coming out at about, I think Connor said 10:30 a.m. There'll be a news video then about 8 o'clock tomorrow night, but no live stream tomorrow, which can only mean one thing. Something's going to happen in the transfer market, known our luck. Itachi said, love that you're part of my daily routine. I love that you're all part of mine, mate. I love it. I love the inside jokes we have. I love that I get to know a little bit about your lives, where in the world you are, your views on the club as well. This community and this channel has been the good side of the internet for me, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. For all the arseholes and dickheads, there's 100 amazing people. I just struggle sometimes to cut through the negative stuff. When you don't have a high opinion of yourself at times and this shit happens, sometimes it can drag you down for a minute or two. But then, you look at your kids, you look at your family, and you realise what it's all about, and you move on. Hoarder said, Elliot will be a superstar there. Do you think Arsenal are more competitive with their signings, said Jeremy? Yes. So, I think we're in a proper battle this season in the Premier League. Arsenal, Manchester City, ourselves, still uncertain whether Chelsea will have the consistency, but they certainly have the talent. It's just why I'm so adamant in saying if we don't get the business we need to get done between now and the window closing, I don't think we retain a Premier League title. If we close the window right now, I just don't think it's possible for us to go through the season and have the consistency needed to win the Premier League. No, Dave, I'm all good. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you. I'm all good for the live show. Thank you, sir. Chris Tatton said GUEHI confirmed tomorrow, Craig. Maybe, Chris, maybe. Look, that situation's interesting because you see Oliver Glasner speaking. Eze rang in sick last night, by the way. I'm not even joking. Literally rang the manager with the old, can't play, sick. Nothing to do with going to Arsenal there, Ibrahim, no. But let's wait and see. But it feels like they want to keep GUEHI until after the Fredrikstad second leg for the Conference League next week, which feels a little bit greedy. David said, Edwards and Hughes, we trust to get it done. In Edwards and Hughes, we trust to get it done. Sorry. Yeah, it's hard not to trust the process with the great window we've had so far. And I feel like this is the point where we make the big splash at the end. I think we've recouped enough money now and freed up enough squad space that we'll attack the market for the last few days. So I'm probably feeling a little bit more optimistic after coming onto the stream about it. Let's wait and see. But we do know, we'll all know how we're feeling soon enough because not much time left in the window. Right, let's get some more comments. Mola Scholar said GUEHI and Isak are compromised with Rodrigo. So there is a mad world where perhaps we get all of them. So I'm going back to Dave O.C. Copp's post that said Liverpool want a 60, 70 million pound winger even after Isak. So I wonder, is there a world, maybe I'm being very greedy here, but is there a world where we get Rodrigo, Isak and Guéhi, or Fofana, Isak and Guéhi, or, some combination? Vaseline, I've no idea what Ryan Graffenberg named his kid, mate. Haven't got a clue. Be lying to you if I told you I knew or didn't. Paul White said, I think the next 2 games could define our season. Well, psychologically, I think it'll play a big part. Let's just say for a second we lost to Newcastle and we drew at Arsenal. That's 5 points dropped, 4 points from 9. It's not going to fill you full of confidence. And then we know there's difficult games to come down the road as well. But on the other side, if you won both of them, you're going to feel like, you're invincible going through the rest of the season, So if you want some good omens, we haven't lost to St. James's Park in our last few games. So there is that. I think in the last 2, we've went 1-0 down in the games and found a way back in to get a draw and I think a victory before that. So the omens are decent. And look, Newcastle are short of attacking threat. Now, for what it's worth, I think at home against us, under the lights, with the whole Isak saga, that's going to inspire them to put in one hell of a performance. But if the lads show up and play to their best, we're capable to beat anybody. Ushin said, how people treat others is a mirror of what's inside them. Big love from Wicklow. Thank you, Ushin. Yeah, I think that's true. So for me, I used to block myself off and I used to be quite angry. And then this channel softened me up a little bit and I started to become a little bit more vulnerable and open up a little bit more. And I feel like I've definitely gotten a lot of that back, mate, like you've said. Yeah, I just wish we lived in a world where these angry people were won around to the good side and we could have a bit of fun with them and they could enjoy themselves in the streams rather than posting vile nonsense. Right, let's check our poll. Are we up to the 2,000 votes yet? We are indeed. So we asked, do you trust the process to get the players signed? 78% of you guys and girls said yes, we do trust the process. Good. I'm loving the optimism. Well played. Right, we're only 50 likes short of 1,000, ladies and gentlemen. So if I could be so greedy as to ask you to hit that like button, would be very much appreciated. So I think I've told you about our dream with the Clips channel. I don't think that we will get 1 million subscribers on the main channel. I hope we do, but I'm not thinking it's a formality or anything like it. But we do think we can get our Clips channel to the silver play button status of 100,000 subscribers. So if you guys are watching and you haven't, maybe you think you're already subscribed to it, maybe you didn't know it existed. If you can check out Anfield Agenda Clips and subscribe over there, would be a huge help. I think we're about 55,000 subscribers, something around that. So if you could help us out on that journey, that would be very much appreciated. Connor puts up basically the shortened parts from the late night agendas and some other funny moments from watchalongs and clips somewhere between 1 and 8 minutes long. And also on this one as well, the WhatsApp. Don't forget, if you want to submit the player ratings after the game on Monday, we now put them into the WhatsApp group. We're about to hit 13,000 members in there. So if you haven't already, please do hit that button and scan the QR code on the screen and join the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp. On this one, yeah, there we go. I want to bring this one up again, just in case people weren't in with us earlier on. This written in front of you is why I think Liverpool absolutely, positively have left themselves short as it sits. It took that being right in front of my face and looking at it written out to realise, damn, we are short. You got a 16-year-old kid, a player in Federico Chiesa who isn't match fit and hasn't played a lot of minutes, and then we've got 3 senior players. That, to me, is us leaving ourselves short in attack. So we got to get it sorted. Dino said, big up Craig, net spend update. Don't have the newest version of the net spendometer to hand, Dino. I will adhere to have it for you on Sunday, if that's all right. I think we're at about 70, 80, something like that. But obviously the Elliott stuff still to come. We did get confirmation as well today that Lewis Kumas has joined Birmingham City on loan for the season. It is just a loan move, by the way, but he had an option of going to either Wrexham or Birmingham City, and he chose to go to Birmingham. So wishing Lewis Kumas the very best this season, obviously playing at a high level there in the Championship. Mahmood said, they said we can spend up to 500 million and be PSR compliant. Yep. That's correct. I've seen similar things written as well. Now, I never expected us to have a net of 500 million, but I do expect us to finish the window with a net spend upwards of 200 million, maybe 250, which is an incredible amount of money again to invest and spend. But if we ended the window with Isak, Mark A, and a young forward, and you're talking about a net spend of, let's say, 220, 230, I would be over the moon with that. It'd be incredible business. Some players moved out that probably didn't have futures at the club. Good money brought in. Squad places freed up. And players brought back in to beef us up. So if the window ends the way we all hope, we're pretty much set. But right now, it's squeaky bum time. But it is good to see that so many people are so optimistic. What was that 70-something% figure a minute ago that we had, feeling like we will get the business done? That certainly eased my mind a little bit, because I'm a worrier at the best of times. Where are we at? Isak and Gay to be shown off at halftime against Arsenal, said Paul Wood. That would be delicious. It would. Here's what you could have had, Arsenal, but you ended up with Gyökeres. I love that, by the way. I'm never going to let Arsenal fans forget about that. The amount of them who wanted the Gyökeres deal cancelled when they thought they could maybe get Isak. The pleas to the board to get rid of that deal and to go and get Isak. And then when that happened and they got Gyökeres, the line was, well, if Isak had had an option, he'd have come to Liverpool, or he'd come to Arsenal over Liverpool. Definitely would have. No, he wouldn't. And I'm sure there's an image of Isak holding a Liverpool flag from his days in the Netherlands or somewhere else as well. So yeah, I've never really believed that. If it came down to it, he wouldn't have chose Liverpool, because look, Arsenal are a great club, and if Liverpool weren't in the mix, maybe. But he always wanted Liverpool in my eyes. Could you allow comments in the WhatsApp for group members? It's not possible, Paul. It's not something we can control, mate. It's just the way WhatsApp channels are. We can make a few more admins that can post in it, but we can't allow everybody to post in it, unfortunately, mate. It is something I asked Connor about myself. Mahmood again, how are we, sir? Said, I think you should add a stream with fans. Bless one or two of us randomly every week for 5-7 minutes on your stream. Look, it's something I'd love to do if we can figure it out in a way that doesn't end up in a bit of a mess, with some choice language and some stupid things. I'd love to do it. Absolutely, mate. I'd love to do an hour or an hour and a half long stream once a week where members can jump in for a chat or even just ask questions. Maybe it's something we could do where somehow the question could be sent in on a voice note or something like that. Connor could maybe pre-look at them and send them on to me, and then we can bring them into the stream or something. It's something we have toyed around with for quite a few years, but yeah, leave it with me. Leave it with me, because I love the idea in theory. I really do. So have you seen the latest actually on Newcastle, that they have now included another name on their striker search list, and that is Alexander Sorloth, who's a name today. Craig Hope said Newcastle currently exploring 2 or 3 striker options as they wait for progress or otherwise on Johan Visa. Answers wanted today. One name in the mix and discussed is Alexander Sorloth at Atletico Madrid. As for Jurgen Strand Larsen, Wolves do not want to sell. Sorloth is 29 though. And also another thing I wondered, and somebody in the chat mentioned, is if Aston Villa do get Nicholas Jackson, would Newcastle maybe be interested in trying to bring in Ollie Watkins? I've not seen it really written about much. And one more, Bench Bochak said, Brazilian outlet GE Globo claimed Liverpool have inquired about Fluminense attacking midfielder Isak. I shit you not. Spelled differently, Isaque. He's 18 years of age. Ben said he's very highly rated. Average 7.2 dribbles per 90 minutes for Fluminense at under 17 and under 20 level, and had 19 goal contributions in 29 games. Where are we at? This one. Gary said, only coming here now, are we getting Isak, Gay and Rodrigo? No, I'm not saying we are getting them, but it's certainly possible. So there's been a couple of things about Rodrigo this evening, mate, and one of them is, one second, that Liverpool are already engaging in negotiations with the entourage of Rodrigo, said SBT Sports. The Reds would see the Brazilian as a perfect replacement for Diaz. And there was another report that said that Manchester City want to keep hold of Savinho and aren't going to sell him. And is that maybe because they think they're losing in this little race or battle for Rodrigo, if indeed there is one? So that's one thing. And on the Isak thing, well, there's been a couple of things today to suggest that Liverpool are still planning to go ahead with a bid of 130 million quid. So let's wait and see. And on Mark Gay, that's the one I'm probably most confident about. Graham Bailey tonight said, TBR Football can now confirm that Steve Parish is actively attempting to sell Mark Gay to Liverpool. Parish has made it clear he does not want to lose him for free next summer. So, all possible. Dario AS have also said Madrid are big fans of Adam Wharton, but the only way they'll try signing him now is if they make a big sale like Rodrigo. Liverpool are one of the clubs also interested in the English midfielder. Crystal Palace want a fee of £70 million. But again, would they sell him now? After losing a load of players already, it's almost like they'd be flirting with potential relegation. I think Glasner would lose his mind at that point. Scratching Claimer said, when the window closes, what's your front three and back line? Does this team retain the Premier League title? In my opinion, Arsenal are favourites, followed by Man City without Rodri. If the window closes and we get in 2 forwards and a centre-back, we're absolutely going to retain the league, in my opinion. If we get in 1 forward and a centre-back, it's all to play for. If we get in no forwards, I don't see any hope in hell of us retaining the Premier League. When the window closes, what's my front three? Salah, Isak, Ekitike. That's my best guess at it. And the back line, it depends if you want to go Frimpong or Bradley, but let's say one of them on the right. Mark Gay, Van Dijk and Kirkes. So that's my best guess at that one. Tipsy Dipsy said, if Article 17 was such an easy clause to trigger, then every player would look at triggering it. Looking for a move, we just need to forget about it. Exactly. I've said this for weeks now, mate. The Article 17 stuff is just fanciful from people trying to sound clever, but they've misinterpreted the ruling. And if it was so easy, like you've said, it'd be written about extensively by the media, by the journalists. None of them have mentioned Article 17 as an option here. None of them. And I think that should be telling to Liverpool fans as well. I don't know if I brought that up on screen, so I will now for a second just to make sure. And thank you again, Tipsy Dipsy. Scratching Claimers. I said my front three, if CDM comes in, Wirtz, Isak, Salah, no CDM, Gakpo, Isak, Salah, Kirkes, VVD, Gay, Frimpong, Semenyo. Be an interesting one. I don't see a world where we move for Semenyo. Not after him signing a new contract and stuff as well at Bournemouth. And after selling us Kirkes and losing Otara, I just don't see a world where they lose Semenyo as well. Be a lot of work for them still to do. Right, ladies and gents. Any other few last bits before we finish up? Let me have a little look in the chat. Kyle Agger said, work a deal to trade Konate and a similar fee for Rodrigo once we secure a deal for Gay. That would be certainly something I think we should consider. You know, let's see if we could get 30, 35 for Konate against the fee for Rodrigo. Bring in Mark Gay and, you know, almost try to let the Konate and Mark Gay fees offset themselves. Peter Lawrence said, no way we should pay 150 million to Newcastle. We would never raise our heads again. Oh, it's madness, Peter. Madness. That £150 figure, mate, is absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, hearing people dismissing the 110 to 120 million pound offer as an insult is also absolutely ridiculous. It's potentially a British record fee, and people are talking about it like it's nothing. I think the sweet spot's somewhere between 120 and 130. And if a deal gets done, I'd be guessing that's the kind of ballpark we're talking about. Right. I'm going to go record the late night update. Again, no live stream tomorrow, so I hope to see you guys again on Sunday. The preview will be out at about 10:30 tomorrow morning. Enjoy your weekend, my friend. We'll see you on Sunday. And of course, don't forget, we'll be back for the watch along on Monday night as well. Enjoy yourselves. Have a good one. Thank you for dropping in tonight, and we'll talk soon. Bye.